Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the June 17th, Season 5 web show, Episode 3 of Ask Us. This is our 16th year of Ask Us. I'm Jean Smart, the host of Ask Us, and with me is our producer, Rishi Sani, Education and Event Coordinator from Clinical Trials BC. Good afternoon, Rishi.
Thank you, Jean. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here. Just start us off here right now by acknowledging that, with respect and humility, our Vancouver offices are located on the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation, and our broadcast does extend across many Indigenous lands and territories. I myself am in North Vancouver, which is Squamish Nation. This photo that you see here was sort of an accidental find. My wife and I, we were just on the road getting some pizza. I think by the Shed is what it's called on Cypress Mountain, and we found this area nearby. It's called Trestle Bridge on Cypress Bowl Road. It's a beautiful walkway. You get an amazing view of the city walking through these trees. It's a very tranquil environment, and it always just reminds me of just what a beautiful place we live, even so close to a city, how you can escape into nature. Gene and I were actually chatting today a little earlier. Just we live in one of the most beautiful places on earth, and we're so very thankful for that. We're so very thankful for the stewards of the land and just how important it is to maintain these lands. So I hope everyone can have a great summer and enjoy the beautiful province of British Columbia and the greenery that it offers. Just a quick disclaimer that the views and opinions expressed during this episode are those of the individual presenter and may not be necessarily reflective of the views of Michael Smith Health Research BC or Clinical Trials BC. If you are viewing this in a group location or in a single location with multiple people, we please ensure that each individual has registered to receive a link to the recording and the post-event survey that will be going out after this episode. That post-event survey contains a link to a certificate of attendance if you did want to request one. You'll also notice that at the beginning of this episode, there was a recording notice. This episode is being recorded and it could be uploaded to our website and a streaming platform after its conclusion. We do reserve the right to edit the recording. And for those who don't know who we are at Clinical Trials BC, Clinical Trials BC, which is part of Michael Smith Health Research BC, strengthens the clinical trial ecosystem by increasing capacity and capability to conduct clinical trials across the province. We lead and partner on various initiatives to maximize the health, educational, and economic benefits of clinical trials. Our leadership at the national and international level supports collaborative efforts to build talent and catalyze change to advance clinical trials in BC.
Our Ask Us topic today is on equipment in clinical trials. This topic was originally a Clinical Trials BC workshop. Our overarching Ask Us question today is, what compliance activities are necessary for equipment management and maintenance in clinical trials? And we thank you all for sending in your questions. You're going to find that most of them have in fact been incorporated into the session. So Rishi, in this episode, we're going to be including a Slido. Do you want to give us, the audience, a few instructions on how to access that?
Absolutely, Jane. Thank you. Yes, so we will be sharing a Slido for today's presentation with everyone. The Slido will show up later in today's presentation, and you can access that through a QR code. That QR code will be on the slide when it's prompted up. If you have your phone, feel free to scan it. We'll leave that up for a little bit. I'll also be popping a link into the chat once prompted as well later in today's presentation. So if you're using a computer or a laptop in which to answer the Slido through there, feel free to use the link as well. And Jean, I'm excited about this episode and the guest that we have with us today here.
Okay, today we have a returning guest with us, and I'm going to just say regular guest, and we do hope to have a lively discussion. Karen is the quality lead provincial clinical trials at BC Cancer, and she's responsible for quality oversight at 6 provincial centers, and she has well over 18 years of experience. Are we still counting, Karen? In clinical quality, and has previously worked for both sponsor company and a CRO, allowing for a really well-rounded view of good clinical practices. Karen specializes in quality management, SOP creation, and computer system validation, and has conducted GCP audits both domestically and extensively internationally. She has played a significant role in the development and expansion of real-time CTMS use at Provincial Health Services Authority and provincially. And she's maintained her credential as a registered quality assurance professional in good clinical practices, I think since 2008.
Mhm.
Good. Karen's a regular on Ask Us, and she's been a guest, I think, multiple times. I'm not sure how many. Let's not count, Karen. Welcome back, Karen.
Thanks, Jean. I'm happy to be here. And I am happy to be speaking to you today from the Kakite traditional territory in New Westminster.
Good. Okay. I thought before we start on the questions, because there's a lot of them and they were really good. I thought we should go over the scope of this episode. So this discussion is going to be based on general clinical trial sites or units and cover phases 2 to 4 clinical trials. Additional content is required for specialized units and for laboratories. So next we're going to have some definitions to share with you. So we're all on the same page with the same nomenclature. Glossary, if you will.
Yeah. So just so we all know, what we mean when we talk about maintenance and calibration. So maintenance is generally the activities and strategies in keeping all your pieces of equipment and machinery in optimal working condition. You can break down maintenance into different categories. So regularly scheduled inspections, repairs, servicing, that would all fall under preventative maintenance or preventive maintenance. When it breaks, when it fails, malfunctions, that's your corrective maintenance. Um, for some pieces of equipment, you may have condition-based maintenance, where there's a specific situation or condition that will indicate the need for maintenance. Um, Predictive maintenance may be data-driven by parameters that have been preset by perhaps the health authority or the manufacturer themselves. And then there's my favorite kind of maintenance, which isn't on the slide because it's not always well accepted, but that would be percussive maintenance. Some of you may know this and be familiar with it. It's basically whacking the living daylights out of something until it works again.
We've
For
all done that.
haven't we all hit that laptop until it works? For calibration, so this is evaluating and adjusting your equipment so that it is truly accurate. It will ensure, again, the accuracy, the reliability of your readouts or your measurements. It will reduce errors and will support quality in your trials. So again, a few different categories of calibration. Um, Absolute calibration will compare your instrument reading to a known reference value. You can also calibrate against a piece of equipment or an instrument that has already been calibrated. So that would be known as relative calibration. And then if your equipment or machinery has a 0 point, there's zero calibration. Again, adjusting it against a known reference standard or known reference value. So each piece of equipment or machinery will have a maintenance and calibration schedule. These are based on manufacturer's requirements or recommendations, any regulatory requirements for that piece of equipment, for that machine, or just regulatory requirements in general, and then third-party certification standards.
So Karen, where do we typically find all these definitions? Are these in the protocol or usually not? Are we usually finding these in our own site SOPs?
It really Some come from the protocol, so I would look to the protocol to find what pieces of equipment I may need to look at for a particular trial. If I want to know specifically about those pieces of equipment themselves, I would start to dig into what is available at the site on that equipment. So if there's a user manual, I would look at that, and I would look at the SOP, and I would look at any documentation the site has on the usage of the equipment. So that would be calibration records and maintenance records. So all those elements taken together will give me a good sense of how and when the equipment is used and what is required to keep it in that maintained and calibrated state that we need for the trial.
Okay, so we got our definitions and we got our nomenclature. I think we're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna start in with the questions that have been sent in. And these first one is on, regulations and compliance category. So the regulations, Health Canada Division 5, C 05-010C, Systems and Procedures, GCP. And my question to you, Karen, is can you mention 3 other elements that compliance would be measured against?
So like I was saying just in the question before, what I would use to measure equipment maintenance and calibration is the SOP,
Yeah.
the maintenance and calibration schedule that has been set out by the site or biomedical, as the case may be for those of us in public health, and the user manual that the equipment has.
Okay. So I think everybody jotted those down. Those are taking notes. Okay, we have a number of common equipment findings in BC. And my second question is, this is really serious. Many of the common findings were graded minor in the past, but we see more major findings under equipment than we used to. Would you agree on that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, well, here's the top findings that my friend Bjorn Kier has pulled for us. Okay, so these are ugly, I'm warning you. The site had no documented procedure in place to address the maintenance and calibration of the equipment used in the study. The site had no listing of the equipment used in the study or specifications on the maintenance of the equipment. And this one, there was no record that the equipment had been cleaned or maintained as was recommended in the product manual. The environment that the equipment was placed in was inadequate to support maintenance and calibration. There's only a couple more, don't worry, they're getting worse as we go though. There were no qualified vendors in place to service the equipment, study equipment for the duration of the study. And there was no tracking system in place to ensure follow-up with equipment service vendor for maintenance and calibration of the equipment. Yikes. Karen, tell me which one concerns you the most.
Oh, the one that just makes my skin crawl is being no record of equipment being cleaned or maintained. I mean, I don't know how you can trust anything coming out of equipment that's not been touched since it was probably thrown into the clinic room. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I've seen so many stories recently, and these ones seem to come out of pharmacies, unfortunately, where equipment has been reused when it shouldn't have been or not cleaned in between patients. Aside from just risking the study, that's risking the general health of all of your patients, not just trial patients, trial participants. Uh, yeah, general general threats to public health is it's really not what we want to see based on equipment maintenance and cleaning.
I thought that I was just imagining it that over time that the gradings had gone up in the bad direction to from well, in Canada our grading system is reversed, so a risk 3 is the lower one, but it's gone up to a majors and a couple times, and one of the highest findings that Bjorn was able to pull out was the one that had the highest. It had a major 2 plus with an arrow. It's the one where they didn't have any equipment listings at all. So I agree with you. I don't like the messy stuff that wasn't clean, but it's the one where they had no equipment listings that had the highest mark. That's not good. Okay, so say we got all these findings, or we got one of these findings, hopefully not a whole bunch of them. What are your favorite systems to funnel internal equipment findings?
For me, I'd have to pick your CAPA system. So this is your corrective action and preventive action system. If you get, excuse me, sneeze. If you get observations from a sponsor audit, or you've noted that you have a missing system, you've perhaps done a gap analysis, implementing corrective actions is certainly recommended. And this is probably your best option if you have a tight timeline and you need to document that you've undertaken these actions. Again, if you've had observations from a regulatory inspection, implementing corrective actions is required. How about you, Jean? What's your favorite?
Oh, you know me, I like the CQI, the continuous quality improvement. I think it's a really good approach because if the research team wants to implement a project or try out a new alternative form or design, especially if they've never had anything before, the PDCA system is the most common system used in research. I think everybody's seen it. It's the simple one, plan, do, check, and act. And you keep going around until you get it right. I think it's great for teams, especially if you can report back at a team meeting how it's going. And sometimes you get negative feedback and you can kind of tweak and adjust. So I think if you don't have anything and you're just starting, I like to start off with CQI. Anyway, if you need to develop a set of equipment and maintenance and calibration forms and templates, again, that's a great option for your team, CQI. What do you think? You go with the
I know
kappa.
I go with the CAPA, feeds into CQI if you like.
Fair enough.
They
I
do go
guess you
back
can
and
do both. You can do
forth.
both. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we had a whole lots of questions came in. It was the most popular section, I think. Where are equipment lists derived from? Not the air.
Um, so on a per trial basis, I start with the protocol. And it's not that I'm looking for a specific section in the protocol that will say equipment list. I go to the schedule of assessments. And from that schedule of assessments, looking at what is required, you can get an idea of what equipment might be required. So vital signs, etc. Then once I'm on site, I may ask, if I'm doing a site audit, I may ask the coordinator or the nurse, what kind of instrument do you use to collect this data? And I would go from there to build the equipment list for a particular trial.
I suppose you could take a walk around the site and list equipment as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
What do I see?
Yes. Okay, so on a site listing form, what elements would you say should be there? Like that is to say, what would be on the headers?
Oh, okay. So I'd want the name of the equipment, the manufacturer's name. If there was an ID number, please say there's an ID number. Whether that piece of equipment is the primary or if it's the backup, and please say you have a backup. What kind of units it gives its measurements in? Are there any specifications? Does it have basically what its maintenance requirement is, and perhaps that's coming from the user manual. And the one that often gets left off is, where does it live? Where is it?
Actually, what, like room or part of the room or?
Yep. Where will I
Okay.
find it if I go hunting?
Okay. All right. Well, I can see right now that that's going to be a landscape document.
Oh yeah, it's big.
Okay. Okay. Lots of format. Okay. So that's a great segue to the next question. And Rishi has just put those 8 elements that you just mentioned into the chat. I think he has. It's telling me that he is doing that. Okay.
I will be.
Okay. And so just to recap for those of you, she said name of equipment, manufacturer, she said ID number, and there was a star beside that one. Primary or backup unit, and then units, what units it's in, specifications, and she also said maintenance requirement and the location. So just recapping that. Okay. The next area that we got a lot of questions in, very similar, we're in documentation. So these are the obvious equipment sections. What are the necessary documents, elements for equipment? And we've already pre-prepped a bit of slide for you here. I start with mine. Okay, so equipment list, because that was one of the major findings. That's why I put that one first. Equipment specifications and manuals. Karen mentioned those as essentials. And equipment assessment form or notes. This is for the condition and status. And I would also add in shipping receipt and a condition note, like what kind of shape was it in when it arrived at the site?
So let's not forget the people that actually do the servicing for our equipment. So for that, you'll need your vendor qualification and surveillance SOP. Hopefully you've got one. And to go along with each of those vendors, qualification files and any listings you might have on them. And if you've gotten to the point where you are now doing surveillance on your qualified vendors, you'd want to have also surveillance documentation and the maintenance log.
I'm going to be asking you more about that in a minute, so hold that thought. Okay, what about the cleaning log? Just speaking to your favorite or least
Ooh, yeah.
favorite finding, and the temperature control log, and maybe equipment maintenance and calibration log. I went over the logs.
Yep, that's many logs. Equipment maintenance records. Some sites, some companies put stickers on their individual pieces of equipment, either letting you know the status, whether it's fit for use, is it in quarantine, does it need anything, calibration certificates or records for each piece of equipment. And depending on what kind of equipment or machinery it is, it might have validation and compliance certificates, especially for equipment software.
Ah, the software. Forgot about that part. Yes, good. Okay, I had also these are derived from us speaking ahead of time and also from your questions. So yes, you need to have a backup equipment plan or procedure and study specific or equipment specific procedures. So sometimes you have to, you know how to run the thing, right? Okay. Um, Karen, I have this question that kind of goes with this listing that we have available and we'll send you. Um, what about when a sponsor sends you equipment?
Yeah, that
Does
does
that,
happen. It happens all the time, actually. Offhand, I can think of ECG machines that have been provided to BC Cancer for use in sponsor-specific clinical trials. So we can't just take it and plug it in. We have to first go approach biomedical, have them add the equipment to their system. There may be maintenance and calibration checks that need to be run on it first. And we basically, you cannot use that piece of equipment, whatever it is, until biomedical or your equipment team gives the go ahead. It won't be considered fit for use until all its installation checks and whatever that bit of equipment or machinery requires have been completed and it's been deemed fit for use.
okay, well, I know from working in a hospital for all those years that you're not even allowed to plug in a blow dryer without permission from biomedical engineering. But what does that look like when you say go ahead? Like, what am I looking at? Am I getting a certificate, a piece of paper, an email? What is that?
Probably depends on how your biomedical team works. Um, it could be a certificate. Probably you may get calibration certificates, especially if this piece of equipment needs to be calibrated prior for use. So you'd certainly need to have those in place. Maintenance probably depends on the equipment, what the manufacturer requires of the equipment before use, and biomedical may give you a formal go ahead. It could be in writing. Actually, I would hope it would be in writing rather than just verbal thumbs up. Um, but it will depend on what the procedures are for and what their SOP is for your biomedical team.
So in some cases, the equipment actually has to go to biomedical and then would come back to you, or is it just discussion on, you give them the specifications and you say, guess what I've got sitting here?
Either way, biomedical still has to actually lay hands on that piece of equipment, especially if it needs any kind of maintenance or calibration before it can be used.
Okay, so we might be taking it down the hall or they come to us.
You know, if it's a fridge, I don't recommend you take it down the hall. Those can be a little delicate. Maybe you just, leave that in place and leave the mountain where it is and bring biomedical to the mountain.
Okay. Okay, I have one more question that kind of goes with this. Where in the CTMS do you store your equipment documentation and records?
So of course we're talking about real time, at least at PHSA we are.
Most of the provinces
Yeah.
yeah, real time, yes.
So one of the things I love best about real time and something that we're really pushing for is using that general site documents section for a couple of reasons. One, everything in the general site documents will copy down to trials that it could copy down to all trials, or in general site documents, you can also start to filter. But with your equipment documentation, you'd want this available for all your studies. It's a single upload. We store our equipment records, and these we get from biomedical on a predefined basis. We store them in general site documents. That way, everyone has access to them. We all know where they are. And most importantly, our sponsors and our monitors and any inspectors that happen to come around, they have easy access to them as well.
Okay. I hope you're not feeling too bombarded because I have a whole bunch of questions now on picking up on that piece about service provision. Okay, so
Let's do it.
there was a lot of questions. Okay, so the first one is what is necessary? I love this to qualify an equipment manager or service provider.
First, they should actually be an experienced equipment manager or service provider. I don't care if your brother-in-law has a toolkit, it's really not going to suffice.
Oh
We've
yeah,
seen some interesting things over the years.
we have, and I remember the day that I came in and saw this white trail of dust going through the unit, and I kind of followed it and wondered what it was, and it stopped at the scales, and I thought it was so odd, but the people at I shouldn't say where, but anyway, there's people, I'm sure they're laughing in the background here because they were there, and you're not allowed to have your brother-in-law or your nephew bring in the flour bag or the garbanzo beans to calibrate your scales, right?
Not if it's leaving a trail behind.
I know it's not accurate. It's
Yeah, that bag of flour is not going to be your absolute standard, is it?
no. I've heard of worse ones though, but the garbanzo bean can made me laugh. You can get 10-kilogram ones apparently.
God, these days with shrinkflation, do you think it's actually 10 kilograms?
I don't think so either. It's probably including the can. Okay, so you have to have someone, probably someone formal, to be your provider. Okay, so in the same line of questioning, would you say that a service providers are thoroughly monitored or adequately surveyed after we've actually qualified them?
No, unfortunately, it's just not the case in my experience. People's time is really, we don't have a lot of time. Those of us, well, actually, any of us in our jobs, we don't have an awful lot of time. Sometimes we focus mostly on just qualifying those service providers and then just letting them go about what they do. But we do need to follow up. Our is the service that they are providing, is it meeting our needs? Is it as we expect that service to be provided? Are they coming around when they should be? Are are they responsive to requests for extra service as needed? Is the documentation that they're providing, is it adequate to be able to show that our equipment is maintained and calibrated as it should be? Are they even trained? Are they following their own SOPs? We need to make sure that the people who come to service our equipment are actually trained to do so.
Apparently, because it's a delegated responsibility, isn't it? Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, I have this. I think I know who sent this question in, but I'll anyway. What about they didn't write it like that. I put that part in. What about schedule versus risk-based maintenance and calibration and discrepancies between user manuals and the service provider decision making? Do you know
Yep.
what I'm saying? Okay.
Yep. We've gotten caught on that by Health Canada. Actually, it was a relatively minor piece of equipment, but there was definitely a discrepancy. The user manual said, X period of time for calibration, and biomedical had a different period of time. And for that, we're really relying on our documentation. It could be in the site's equipment management SOP. It could be in biomedical's SOP or the documentation that they have. Changing maintenance and calibration schedule, especially a maintenance schedule, you're that is, based on risk, but you do need to have documentation of your decision making and what you've evaluated to come to that decision.
So if you were filing a deviation through your quality department or something like that, what would you file the deviation against? The SOP or the user manual?
I would personally, I would file it against the SOP because that's our controlled document. And I would hopefully have my justification documented with it.
Some kind of rationale. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, hopefully that answered that person's question. It's a hard one. I know it's been that's a star beside that one because that's been a big thing in BC. We've had a number of groups that have had that finding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Changing gears just a little to calibration requirements. We had a few questions on this. Calibration requirements. I think this is a scary question. Honestly, it's the most concerning for me because it can be critical data derived from calibrated equipment. And in some cases, dosage is being calculated and regulatory decisions are being made from the results. So is a story you can share about this, Karen? Calibration requirements.
Oh gosh, yeah. So a lot of the drugs that we use in our oncology trials, it's weight-based dosing. And there is typically a line in the protocol that says, you dose based on your cycle 1 day 1 weight, unless there is a more than 10% difference. And it may not seem like much. And if you're the coordinator or the nurse who is tasked with weighing the participant at each visit, you think, why are we doing this? It doesn't matter that much. But if your scale is not calibrated, if your scale is off, your dosing could be off. You could, what if your participant lost weight, gained weight, and you suddenly had hit that 10% threshold that the dosage needed to be adjusted, but it wasn't. So in cases of weight-based dosing, if you don't have your scale calibrated, you may not be dosing correctly. You could actually be overdosing your participant, and in some cases that's considered a serious medical event. That's
In
not
P
exactly.
in pediatrics, it might be underdosing.
It could be.
Yeah, yeah.
Either way, that's not something you want to have against your protocol.
Yeah.
Or consider your lab equipment not being calibrated. What if a value coming out of that piece of lab equipment delayed someone's dose or led the trials team to believe that they needed to be brought off trial? It's certainly impacting participant care.
Okay, everybody, all our audience can be dreaming about calibration tonight. So, okay,
Well, it's not the first time.
right. Okay, we have a changing landscape, especially from a regulatory perspective. So, one of my questions for you is, do you anticipate any impactful changes based on the new incoming regulations?
Yeah, I do, and I actually, for once, I think they're going to be helpful. Um, how about that? These new regulations and the guidance, it focuses on equipment that is used only for the clinical trial, rather than the equipment that is used for standard of care assessments. So again, going back to that protocol, you're looking at the protocol to determine if any of that equipment, again, is used specifically for the trial, and if it's associated with any of those primary outcomes or endpoints. It's a lot easier to focus on specific types or pieces of equipment rather than everything you might find in the clinic. So if at least you can focus your attention and a little bit more, I think it will help us in the long run.
Okay. What about decentralized trials? How do you check remote equipment, like diaries, functionality?
Oh, that's hard, isn't it? Start small. Sometimes a shotgun approach is not going to be. You need to develop your own system to be able to manage, say, satellite sites or any decentralization that you may choose to do for the trial. And that takes time. You've got to work out your own documentation, how you can maintain that oversight, starting with a small satellite site or perhaps one satellite site at a time is a really good way to work your system out so that as your program grows, you've already got this mechanism, this framework in place to be able to have this adequate oversight.
Okay, this question is the next one's it's on change, but it's not the same kind of change as regulatory change. If you're changing the environment due to emergency, move or backup or say equipment failure, do you want to comment on that?
Oh, because that never happens. Um, not like BC Cancer has been, renovating all their pharmacies over the last few years, moving things hither and yon. Uh, your process starts again. You may have to let that, plug your fridges back in and let them run for a few days to normalize, and then you probably have to repeat your calibration to
Yeah.
ensure that it's functioning as required, as expected. And, this may, especially in the case of a fridge, you may go through all your probes again. Um, your equipment must be given the chance to be in the same state it was in its previous location before you can use it again. And it's the same as, getting something from the sponsor and waiting for biomedical to give you that go ahead that it's fit for use. So the key is just making sure that the stable environment that it was in previously is now uh, it's now where it is. So it
Speaks to not completely ignoring your backup equipment. Like,
no, your
yeah, you
backup
have to
equipment.
go, even if it belongs in someone else's department, is your backup. You need to make sure that that's always stable too,
Yep,
right?
yep.
Just
Blow the
in case.
dust off it every now and then.
Yeah.
Give it a clean.
Or move things over, yes. Okay. Okay. Oh, you're not gonna like this area. This next question. It's in about non-compliant sites. So there's a few people that when I was reading out the findings, you know who you are, because those were all BC findings. Okay, so let's talk about sites that might be deficient or missing elements here. What do we recommend? What do you recommend?
Help is the first thing, but let's go with an equipment SOP. So many, I think all of us have access to the N2 SOPs, and that might be a really good place to start. Um, Clinical Trials BC also has examples of equipment SOPs that could be used to either as templates or as a good starting point to get your site an equipment SOP. And forms. You're going to need forms that will support your procedure, document your equipment's maintenance and calibration, and any service that it might need. And again, those forms, I think Clinical Trials BC also has examples that, yep. So help is available.
Yes, I guess. I was gonna add in maybe a development plan.
Hmm.
So if this is in place, there's evidence of work in progress. Maybe findings would be at a slightly lower risk grade, And we do have a development plan as a handout we'll send out to those people who have registered. So people like that. Okay, Rishi, we have a Slido to go up. And you can scan the QR code with your phone to access it, or Rishi's going to be posting it in the chat for everyone via a link. We just want to find out where you think you're at. How equipment prepared would you say your site is? And there's kind of a scale there. So Slido, how equipment prepared would you say your site is? Just getting kind of an idea. We have, while people are doing that, Karen and I have a few more rapid answer audience questions. These are, the short answers. Are you ready, Karen?
Let's do it.
Okay, thanks for everybody who sent these ones in. Okay. Can you use a temp recorder for multiple studies where sponsors are different?
Yes, absolutely.
I thought so too.
So long as it's measuring the same value that it needs, that the protocols need. And oh God, please clean it in between uses.
Thank you, Karen. Okay. What do we need to keep calibration records filed with every study?
Yes, indeed. One of the reasons why we love the general site documents so much is those calibration records are then filed with every study, and we don't have to ask coordinators to upload them or copy them time after time again.
Okay, and from the other end of the province, how can you determine which equipment needs to be calibrated? And then can equipment be excluded from a calibration program? Ooh.
Oh, how can you figure out which equipment needs to be calibrated? Go back to your user manuals. If it takes a measurement, it probably needs to be calibrated, just to make sure those measurements are accurate. Can equipment be excluded from a calibration program? Oh,
You'd have to give us a compelling
yeah,
reason why. Maybe
that
talk to your QA if you don't know the answer to that.
yeah, that may take a white paper justification,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to say no, but the justification is going to have to be incredibly compelling.
I'm regulatory, I'd say no. QA says maybe, apparently. That's never
No.
happens. Okay.
No,
Okay.
QA says that's going to be a heck of a paper.
Okay. Suggestions for gathering calibration documents when working with another health authority.
Make friends with your lab coordinator. They at least probably can point you in the direction of the a biomedical contact. To be honest, if you're running a trial where there is another health authority, say, at BC Cancer, we have host hospitals. We should be making friends with biomedical wherever we're running the trials, so that if questions come up, if we need updates, or we just need copies of the calibration records, we know who to go to.
Okay, I'm just going to check in with Rishi here. How are we doing, Rishi?
We're good, Gene. I think we have time for a couple more questions.
Okay,
Um,
I see them. I see them on my board here, so I will do a couple quick ones. Okay, Karen?
go for
You're
it.
up
Yep.
for a couple more, Karen? Okay.
Okay.
Okay, from way in the middle of the province, what are the requirements around brand new equipment documentation? What are the requirements around brand new equipment documentation?
Well, I would want documentation of how the equipment arrived at your site. Maybe that's shipping record. Well, that's probably shipping records. And it would need to be added to the maintenance and calibration log. We'd need to have that user manual. And then I would assume that your equipment team or biomedical likely has some intake and tagging procedure. So we'd need to see that that had been followed. So that we knew for sure that the equipment had been brought into the system, and then any records that were required to get the equipment ready for use.
Good answer. Okay. Okay, and here's a good one. Last one. This is supposed to be a short answer, but I could write papers on this one. What is verification?
Can I give you the regular QA answer of it depends?
Yeah, I love that.
Verification can really, really depend on the type of equipment, but perhaps the easiest way to think of verification is calibration. You know, is it accurate? Can we verify that the values that equipment measures or whatever the equipment is meant to do, you know, can it be verified that those values are accurate and correct?
Okay, thanks for answering those extemporaneous questions, Karen. Before we share some tips with you, Richie, I think we have some Slido results available. Do you want to put those up for us? They're
Absolutely.
ready? Oh, thanks.
Let's see what we have here. Let's refresh that.
Here it comes. Okay,
Hey,
so,
that's
oh,
pretty good.
hey, that's not
Pretty good.
bad. I'm so glad no one wrote, we have nothing yet. Okay, we have some required. That's 33% are in the low zone though. And we have most, a good bulk of people. Nobody has everything. And there's a couple people that don't know, but that are gonna look. Okay, so we
All
got a bit
right,
of
all
work
right.
to do here. Okay, we do have a couple handouts for you at the end. When you get home, we'll send you a guidance document that'll help you. But Karen and I do want to leave you with some quick tips for our audience on best practices for managing equipment and calibration. And we aimed for 10, but we didn't actually argue, but we
Yeah.
ended up with 12 for you. So you got bonus ones. All right.
As usual, we got overzealous.
Yes, very overzealous. Okay. So Karen, you can start.
Okay. Make sure you've got your records of maintenance and calibration before you even approach a trial sample, a trial participant, before the study even starts.
Okay, I wrote, ensure the person doing the calibration, maintenance of performance verification procedures, the PVP, is qualified. Don't get your friend or brother-in-law to do it. We all know why I said that. That was my first choice.
If you notice that the equipment, if the validation has expired, the calibration has expired because calibration is only in place for a certain length of time. If you see it has expired, don't use it. Don't just set it aside. Make sure that it goes into that quarantine area so that nobody else accidentally uses it.
Are you going to send them some yellow tape?
Sometimes it's red.
Okay, okay. Okay, I'm taking Karen's there. I'm going clean your equipment.
Going back to that tape, label the equipment so that it's very clear what its status is.
Okay, and check them. Check those labels. Okay, we have a next slide. Okay, perfect. Karen, you're up.
If you are, if the equipment is in an area where there are known problems, pests, dust control, take precautions, use covers, etc. if you need to.
We could have a whole other episode just on that one, number 7 there.
Pest
Okay.
control.
Yes. Ooh. Okay. There must be documentation for any piece of equipment that has been moved or removed or relocated off the study site. Plus, the equipment must be recalibrated and checked for functionality.
I'll go with keep those records clean, dry, safe, and accessible. So this could mean binders, plastic sheaths if they're paper records. I love the stories of seeing, various beverage spills on records, but honestly, we do need to do better than that.
How about the temperature records on the counter by the sink there?
Yeah,
The
yep.
splash zone,
I love
right?
it when they get all wrinkly from humidity.
Okay. Do you know that you have to keep the records of retired, not required, retired equipment?
And for how long do we keep them?
Oh, I think 15 years, wouldn't it
Yeah.
be? Okay.
at least those 15 years, and do remember that they need to be in your record retention and your archiving lists.
And Karen, you get the last one. Karen put this one in. This was the number 12.
Yep. Get your house in order, which is essentially, if you don't have each and every bit of documentation in your hands at your fingertips, do make sure you know where to find it.
Okay. I like that Rishi has a great sense of humor. I think he's put a house in on your slide. Thank you, Rishi. Okay. Well, our time's almost up and our Ask Us questions I think have been answered. Thank you so much to our guest today, Karen. We love having you here and we love your expertise, your insight, your great stories, and your enlightenment, especially on today's topic of equipment. I hope you enjoyed being here.
I sure did.
Okay. Thank you to our viewing audience for the attendance and the participation today. Your questions were fantastic, and I had to sort through them all, but I think I did. Oh, I think I grouped them rather nicely, and I hope you feel like your questions have been answered. So our producer, Risha, is going to highlight some resources available from this session. And again, we do have lots of handouts and our upcoming events, and also give you some contact information and on evaluation certificate information.
Thank you, Jean, and thank you, Karen, for a fantastic presentation. I just love hearing you. I know how many stories you two have, so I know you guys could have just shared stories the whole time, but this was really informative. So thank you. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the viewing audience did as well. Thank you again, everyone, for sending in your questions. I'm just trying to go to the next slide. I think my PowerPoint is frozen. Of course it has. Well, I will try to get that PowerPoint focused on fixed right now, but I will say you'll all be receiving an email from me later today, and that email will just be containing a link to an evaluation survey. The evaluation survey is open for 2 weeks. It's a short survey. We always love your feedback. It really does help us inform our educational content and improving our educational content as well. Within that link, there is a link to a certificate of attendance that you can request. Feel free to just send that request in, and we do ask that you allow us about 2 weeks to send you that certificate of attendance. This episode is eligible for 1 hour of continuing education units. If you do request a certificate of education, you are attesting that you've attended for the full hour. Let's see if I can get this deck. And it's closed. Okay, here, let's try that again. Let's try take 2. If not, I will be just orally sharing this. I'll go all the way here, just so everyone can see. Brilliant. Okay, that's what we did want you to see, because if you are a clinical research professional who's looking to advance their career, we highly encourage you to attend our June 26th session on our Get Certified program. That is our clinical research professional certification program. During this information session, we'll be discussing the benefits of the certification program, including the exam reimbursement fee and access to our electronic community of practice, which contains some study tips, materials, resources. During this session, we're going to be going over the 3 different professional certifications that we have with SOCRA, ACRP, and the SQA exams. And we have a couple special presentation from 2 certified guest speakers, one of whom is Tatiana Kawakami, who's the Senior Manager at Clinical Trials. The other is Clinical Trials BC, pardon me, and the other is Alicia Murdoch from CanTrain. Tatiana and Alicia will be talking about their experience with certification and the benefits. So again, highly encourage anyone to scan that QR code. If you have your phones, do it right now, just so you can join us on June 26th. If you don't have a phone on you, don't worry. I will be sending you a link via email as well after this episode. And if you ever want to see any of our old Ask Us episodes or anything else we've done as Clinical Trials BC, maybe you want to see some of Karen's old Ask Us episodes that she's joined us on. That's the link on the right-hand side there, that QR code. You can access our resource library. We update it constantly and as soon as possible as well. So we highly encourage that. And last, we do encourage you to connect with us, whether it's on LinkedIn, email. There's a QR code again to subscribe to our newsletter. That newsletter is the quickest way to know what our upcoming education and event schedule is. And thank you so much for attending. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll pass it along to Eugene.
Okay, so this was our last episode of season 5 for the web show. As Rishi mentioned, previous episodes and series are posted on the Clinical Trials BC website for viewing. We do hope to see you at the next Ask Us in the fall. We're going to be talking about environmental impacts of and on clinical trials. We'll be talking a little bit about maternity and pediatrics, about data, and a special retro Ask Us, and more. So mark your calendars and don't miss them. And I wish you all a wonderful summer break.